Have you ever had that feeling that life just isn't moving forward? As if everything is crumbling, but you can't quite explain why? Maybe you've tried to change. Perhaps you've started a new habit, tried to motivate yourself, sought help here and there. But in the end, everything goes back to the same point, the same stagnation, the same feeling of helplessness, the same echo in your mind. I am a failure. If you've ever thought that, even if just in silence, never saying it out loud, then this video is for you. And no, what you feel is not drama or victimhood. It's real, but it's not what you think it is. Aaron Beck, the father of cognitive therapy, made a brutal discovery. Depression and the feeling of failure are not caused by the bad events in life. They are caused by the way you interpret those events. In other words, the pain doesn't come from the world. It comes from the distorted lens through which you see it. Beck called this the negative cognitive triad, a way of thinking that convinces you that you are incapable, that the world is against you, and that the future is inevitably bleak. And when you believe that, everything changes. Your brain starts to function like a radar for disasters. It begins to look for and find signs that everything will go wrong. And you know the worst part? It ignores any evidence to the contrary. It's like living in a nightmare that you recreate every day when you wake up. You get up from the same messy room with the same distractions waiting for you, consume the same toxic content, talk to yourself in the same defeatist way, and then ask, why doesn't my life change? The answer is harsh, because you are feeding, without realizing it, the same conditions that ensure failure. Your room is a reflection of your mind. Your habits are repeated mental programs. The people around you are mirrors of your internal state. And you think you are stuck because life has blocked you, when in fact, you are the one who keeps pressing the same buttons that keep the cage locked. This video is not just another cheap motivational speech. It is a call for you to look in the mirror without looking away. It is for those who are tired of feeling like a spectator in their own life. It is for those who have suffered enough and are ready to hear the truth. You are not broken, you are conditioned, and it is possible to break this cycle. But for that, you will need to face the root of this pattern. And it is not out there. It is inside you. In the next few minutes, I will show you exactly how this mental loop forms, how it controls your life without you realizing it, and, more importantly, how to interrupt it. In a practical, concrete, brutal way, if necessary. Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a pair of glasses, an invisible filter between you and reality. Now, imagine that this filter is cracked, dirty, and distorted. Every time you try to see the world, everything seems worse than it really is. You look in the mirror and see failure. You look at the world and only see rejection, obstacles, injustice. You think about the future and can only anticipate more pain, more mistakes, more frustration. This is the virus described by Aaron Beck, a mental pattern that slowly, silently infiltrates until it completely infects your view of yourself, others, and life. He called this the negative cognitive triad, and when it settles in, it changes everything. Let's understand how it works. The first point of the triad is the negative view of oneself. It's that voice that says, you are not enough, you are not good enough, you always mess everything up. This voice may even seem rational, but it is fed by distorted beliefs that you have internalized throughout your life, perhaps since childhood. With every mistake, every rejection, every criticism, you unconsciously reinforce the idea that something in you is fundamentally wrong. The second point is the negative view of the world. Once you see yourself as a failure, you start to perceive the world as a hostile, unfair, indifferent place. You begin to believe that nothing will go right, that everything is against you, that others have luck advantages, privileges, and you do not. Life seems like an unequal struggle, and when you look around, you only see confirmation of that thought. Finally, the third point is the negative view of the future. It's when you start to believe that nothing will get better, that no matter what you do, the outcome will always be the same: frustration, downfall, pain. You stop trying because you convince yourself that there is no point in trying. Why change if I know it will go wrong again? This is the thought that paralyzes, that drowns any hope of progress. But here's the crucial point. These thoughts are not just reflections of what has happened to you. They are interpretations, and the most shocking part, they are automatic. Beck discovered that these interpretations arise so frequently and naturally that you don't even realize you are having them. They become part of the background of your consciousness. You don't question, you accept, and that's where the virus strengthens. This thought system creates a lens of cognitive distortion that over time reprograms your brain to seek, notice, and store only what confirms these negative beliefs. You may have 10 good experiences, but you will only remember the one that went wrong. Someone may compliment you, but you will fixate on the criticism that came afterward. And when something good happens, your mind says, it won't last. This pattern is insidious, and that's why so many people feel stuck, even when trying to change. Because you are not reacting to reality, you are reacting to your distorted interpretation of reality, and this distortion has become the pattern. But this doesn't just happen on the internal level. This programming also changes the way you act, how you decide, who you relate to, and even the type of environment you allow around you. And that's exactly what we will see in the next part. How these beliefs silently program your behavior to sabotage your own life, reinforcing the cycle of failure without you realizing it. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Now that you understand how the negative cognitive triad distorts your perception of reality, we need to go deeper. Because this distortion not only changes how you feel, it shapes what you expect from life. And what you expect defines what you see. Aaron Beck identified a devastating phenomenon that accompanies the cognitive triad, the depressive confirmation bias. It's as if your mind becomes a surveillance system, tirelessly hunting for everything that proves you are a failure. It's almost cruel. Your brain becomes your own pursuer. Let me be direct. When you believe that nothing works out for me, your brain activates an unconscious mechanism that starts filtering reality. It begins to highlight only what confirms that belief. When something goes wrong, you think, see, I knew it. When something goes right, you dismiss it. That was luck. It will go wrong again soon. And the worst part, when something neutral happens, like someone not responding to a message, your mind interprets it as rejection. Not because it was, but because you expect it to be. This bias is not a judgment error. It is a deep emotional programming. And it affects not only your thoughts, but also your behavior. When you believe you will fail, you act as if you will fail. You try less. You hesitate more. You sabotage yourself. And when the bad outcome arrives, it reinforces the cycle. I tried and failed, so I really am a failure. The truth is that you already entered the attempt defeated. This is the cruelest paradox of the depressive bias. It turns predictions into self-fulfilling prophecies. And you, without realizing it, begin to adjust your entire life to confirm the identity of a failure that you believe you have. And this goes far beyond thoughts. It reaches the level of the most mundane habits. You continue waking up in the same messy environment, relating to the same negative people, repeating the same daily rituals that feed stagnation. Not because you want to, but because something inside you expects nothing to change. You are not waiting for a new life. You are unconsciously preparing to repeat the same script. You ask yourself, why don't I change? But you keep feeding, day after day, the same context that keeps failure alive. And the brain, in this state, is a master at rationalizing your prison. It says, it's hard. I don't have the energy. There's no point in trying now. I am already like this. And these phrases are not neutral. They are commands. Every time you repeat them, you reinforce the internal sabotage system. You strengthen the identity that says, this is the best I can have. And that is why true change does not start with motivation. It starts with breaking away. Breaking away from ideas, from habits, from the environment, even when you still feel unready. Because if you wait to feel prepared within this mental system, you will never act. But to do this, you need to understand something fundamental. You are not just inside a mental cycle. You are surrounded by an environment that feeds this cycle. And that is what we will talk about next. How your external world, from your room to the people you associate with, is reinforcing and replicating the identity of failure you want to leave behind. In the next part, we will expose how the environment you tolerate becomes the framework of your stagnation, and how restructuring it can be the first step to finally breaking free from the cycle of failure. Pay attention to this. It's not just your mind that is programmed to fail. The environment you live in, the people you associate with, the habits you repeat, everything around you is conspiring to keep you exactly where you are. And the most terrifying part? It's you who is allowing this. Every day. Aaron Beck was clear. Negative thoughts do not exist in isolation. They create behaviors, and behaviors build environments. What you feel shapes what you do, and what you do shapes the world you live in. When you are immersed in thoughts like, I am a failure, nothing will change, life is a lost cause, you start to organize your reality to confirm those beliefs. Let's put this into perspective. You wake up and the first thing you see is the same messy room. Clothes thrown around, bed unmade, a pile of objects you pretend not to see. What does this communicate to you? Order, clarity, control? Of course not. It communicates disorganization, weight, stagnation. And this impression silently seeps into your mind even before you get out of bed. The chaos around you becomes a mirror of the internal chaos. And what do? Nothing. You get used to it. You normalize it. Now look at the people you associate with. How many of them inspire you? How many challenge you to grow? Or better yet, how many are constantly complaining, playing the victim, mired in the same stories of defeat that you want to leave behind? If you spend your days surrounded by voices that reinforce mediocrity, how do you expect to believe it's possible to escape it? And the content you consume, the social media you scroll through endlessly, the videos you watch, the comments you read, what is that feeding in you? Clarity, focus, or comparison, judgment, distraction, and more rumination? The truth is harsh. You are reproducing the perfect conditions to remain stuck. You have created, without realizing it, an ecosystem of failure. And as long as this system is functioning, any attempt at change will be sabotaged. Because you might try to think differently, but if everything around you remains the same, your mind will pull you back to the previous pattern. And why does this happen? Because the human mind loves coherence. It wants your thoughts, behaviors, and environment to be aligned. And if the environment is still tuned to the identity of the failure, the mind will resist any idea that breaks that pattern, even if that idea is something positive, even if it's the cure. So let's be realistic. You're not going to get out of this just by thinking positively. You need to destroy the foundations of the cycle, and that starts with the decision to change, even when your mind is still screaming that it's pointless. It starts with a brutal act of interruption. throwing away what holds you back, silencing negative voices, breaking the automatic routine, ruthlessly eliminating everything that feeds failure. Do you want to get out of this hole? Then look around. Your environment is a reflection of your internal state, but it is also the lever for your transformation. Change the environment, and your mind will start to change with it. But be careful. Just changing the environment is not enough. If you don't also attack the thoughts and behaviors, the cycle will recreate itself. That's why Beck said, real transformation happens when you intervene on 3 levels at the same time, in the mind, in action, and in the external world. And that's exactly what we will explore next. How to use this triple intervention to reprogram your life in a brutally practical way, even when you have no desire to do so. The next part is the turning point. It's the beginning of the reconstruction. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebooks. Beyond the Shadow breaks down Jung's core ideas, while Dialogues with the Unconscious gives you a 30-day path to apply them in your life. Both are linked in the pinned comment. Now we have reached the turning point. Up to this point, you have understood how your mind has been conditioned to repeat patterns of failure, how you filter reality to confirm your negative beliefs, and how the environment around you is shaped to keep all of this intact. The question now is how to break this cycle definitively. Aaron Beck gave us the answer, but it is not comfortable. It requires a brutally direct approach, a simultaneous break on 3 fronts: thought, behavior, and environment. This is the triple intervention. It is no use tinkering with one point and ignoring the others. It's like trying to put out a fire by throwing water only on one part of the flame. If you want real transformation, you will have to attack everything at once. Let's start with thoughts. The ruminative mind is a minefield. Negative automatic thoughts arise in fractions of a second, often before you are even aware of them. They say, "You won't succeed. No one cares. It's better to give up." And the problem is not thinking this. The problem is believing it. The intervention begins with identification. Take a notebook and start writing down the thoughts that arise when you are feeling down, frustrated, anxious. Ask yourself, is this true? Is this a fact or an interpretation? What evidence do I have for this? This simple exercise begins to untie the knots that these thoughts have created in your identity. Beck called this cognitive restructuring. It is an active process of confronting your beliefs with reality, of putting your ideas in the cold light of reason. Now, let's move on to behavior. Here is one of the most overlooked truths by those who suffer from stagnation. You don't need to feel like it to act. Motivation is a luxury that often only appears after action, not before. If you wait to feel motivated to change, you will wait forever. So, change even without the desire. Start small, but start. Get out of bed and tidy your room. Go for a 10-minute walk. Put on clean clothes even if you're staying home. Respond to that email you've been avoiding. No matter how insignificant it seems, each concrete action is a message to your mind. I am no longer a hostage to this identity of failure. And over time, this new behavior begins to generate a new emotion. Action first, feeling later. And finally, the environment. No more negotiating with chaos. Your room, your house, your routine, your social circle, all of this is training you all the time. You need to clean up, literally. Throw away everything that represents stagnation. Piled up papers, clothes you don't even wear, objects that remind you of a time you want to forget. Create order where there was once disorder. And this also applies to the digital environment. Unfollow profiles that make you feel inadequate, that feed comparison, negativity, or distraction. Create a space, physical and virtual, where the version you want to become can live. Remember, you don't need to feel that you deserve a new life to start building it. You need to build it to start feeling deserving. The triple intervention is like reprogramming a system that has been infected by years of toxic thoughts, passive habits, and paralyzing environments. It's not easy, but it is possible. And you don't need to change everything at once. You just need to start. One questioned thought, one concrete action, one cut in the environment, one per day, but with brutal consistency. Now that you understand this process, you may be wondering, okay, but what do I do exactly tomorrow when I wake up? How do I apply this in practice? That's what we will talk about in the next part. Get ready to receive an arsenal of practical actions, direct and simple tools that you can apply immediately to get out of the state of paralysis. It's time to take action. You understood the problem, identified the root, recognized the patterns, and comprehended the structure that keeps you trapped. But knowledge without action is just another burden. Now is the moment to move. And for that, you need simple, direct, and relentless tools. Things you can apply today, even if you're feeling weak, unmotivated, or hopeless. Let's start with thoughts. The first exercise is what I call cognitive surgery with the 5 whys. It works like this. Take a negative thought, for example. Nothing ever works out for me. Now ask, why? Because I always fail. Why? Because I'm not good enough. Why? Because people reject me. Why? Because I feel inferior. Why? Because since childhood I learned that I had no value. Do you see what happens? You dive down to the core belief, the emotional root that sustains the pattern. And once you expose it, it loses power. This technique takes the thought off autopilot and shines a light on it. Do this in writing. Don't just think, write. Because what's in your head is fog. On paper, it becomes a map. Second tool, the Cognitive Distortions Journal. Set aside a page each day to note automatic negative thoughts and classify the distortion involved. For example, nothing ever works out for me. That's generalization. If she didn't respond, it's because she hates me. That's mind reading. I made a mistake, so I'm a failure. That's negative labeling. This exercise teaches your brain to recognize the trap before falling into it. Over time, you'll start to catch these thoughts as they arise, and that gives you power. Beck said, "You can learn to see your thoughts as hypotheses, not as absolute truths." Now let's move to behavior. The best way to start is with the 2-minute rule. If a task can be done in 2 minutes or less, do it now. Get out of bed, take a shower, reply to a message, organize something. Don't think, don't negotiate, act. Does this seem ridiculous? Maybe. But in depressive states, movement is the spark that generates energy. Don't wait for energy to create movement. Make the movement to generate energy. Another strategy, replace destructive habits with constructive ones. Example, feel like drowning in Instagram. Set your phone to block the app after 10 minutes. And instead, listen to a short podcast about psychology. Want to break the comparison cycle? Use that trigger to write down 3 personal achievements each day, even small ones. Train your brain to change the response pattern. It's like reconditioning an atrophied muscle. It requires repetition. And the environment? Detox from failure. Grab a trash bag and remove everything that symbolizes stagnation. Torn clothes, broken objects, accumulated papers. Clean your desk. Make your room breathable. Then move to the digital. Mute, unfollow, or block everything that brings you down. Not out of hate, out of survival. Cut without guilt. About people. If you're around someone who pulls you down, reduce exposure. If you can't cut them out, limit their influence. Create emotional distance. Remember, you are not obligated to maintain relationships that destroy your sanity. Energy is more valuable than time. And toxic people are an energetic black hole. Finally, adopt a minimal reconstruction routine. 3 blocks, mental. Write down a thought you want to weaken and a thought you want to strengthen. Physical, Perform a concrete action that moves your body, even if it's just washing the dishes. Environmental. Make a small change in your space. Remove, clean, organize, destroy, or reformulate something. Do this every day, and in 30 days, your mind will start to react differently. Not because the universe conspired, but because you finally stopped conspiring against yourself. Now that you have the tools, you might wonder, what if I don't have the strength? What if chaos returns? How do I keep this change alive? That's what we'll talk about in the final part, because change is hard. But standing firm against internal saboteurs, that's the real battlefield, and that's where you truly strengthen yourself. At this point, you already understand that the feeling of failure is not a true reflection of reality, but the result of a distorted, silent, and relentless mental mechanism. An invisible programming that shapes your perception, filters your experiences, paralyzes your actions, and recreates daily the same emotional hell you are trying to escape. And here's the hardest truth to hear. Until you make a brutal decision, nothing will change. You can keep consuming content about change. You can perfectly understand how the cycle works. You can repeat catchy phrases, watch motivational videos, and tell yourself that one day it will get better. But as long as you keep allowing the same thoughts, maintaining the same habits, and living in the same environment, you are, consciously or not, feeding the failure you claim to hate. Aaron Beck taught us that it's not enough to wait for change to happen. You need to create it and sustain it, even when you don't feel like it, even when everything inside you screams to give up. Because the life you want won't fall from the sky. It will be born when you finally stop recreating the scenario of your ruin and have the courage to dismantle, piece by piece, the identity you built on pain. Is that hard? Yes, but it is liberating, because if you created the cycle, you are also the one who can destroy it. You don't need to become someone perfect, nor do you need to solve everything at once. What you need is to make a radical and definitive choice, to stop living on autopilot, to stop believing that you are your failure, to stop waiting for the right moment to change, because it will never come. If you've made it this far, it's because there's a part of you that still wants to fight, and that part deserves to be heard. More than that, it deserves to be obeyed. Start now. Comment below what point in this video confronted you the most. What gave you a spark? What do you know you need to apply? And if this video awakened something in you, don't stop here, because the next video is also essential. Each piece connects, and each idea builds a foundation. Keep watching, keep rebuilding. Let's continue this journey together.